Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on X at Nicholas M. Craig or check out my new day gig, the early morning gig is probably more accurate. The Carolina Journal News Hour, streaming live wherever you get your live stream videos. Joining me, as always, Brian with an eye Aldridge. What's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Hopefully everything's going good with you. If you want to find me, of course, you can find me at Boise Computer on X or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, and wherever. Hey, I'm wondering if, like, next year after the election, like, they'll finally start having people use other social media. Like, if people finally realize that they're being brainwashed, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
So let me start off on a soliloquy here.
Yes.
I hate Windows updates. Can I just say that? So my computer updated at some point over the weekend, and for the most part, everything is fine. But I've got the Logitech G600, which is a mouse. It's the mouse that's got the 12 buttons on the thumb, like where your thumb, if you're right-handed, where your thumb kind of rests. And I use that for shows like this to switch camera shots. And so this morning, I do the radio show at 5 a.m., and none of my buttons are working. And so I remapped them all, and everything seemingly was working fine. And now we start doing this show, and I click on one of the buttons, and it's not working. And I'm looking at the profile. I mean, I can't even switch to the damn thing. I'm looking at the profile, and everything's fine. This button is mapped to number 4, and I press number 4 on my keyboard, Brian, on my numpad, and it works. But for whatever freaking reason, it's not working in my profile. What a pain in the ass.
So if you unplug it and plug it back in, does it actually?
I don't know.
It still does the same thing.
I don't know. Let's find out. I'll unplug my mouse. Hopefully it doesn't break the entire show. All right, mouse is unplugged, and my keyboard is now
What I love
off.
is
So now who knows what happens.
On those things, sound ports that I have, that I ordered, the USB ones, those ones I have to unplug. After I reboot, I have to unplug them and plug them back in to get my mic to work.
So
for whatever reason.
It worked once. It works on one. It works on one button. One of the things I have. I don't know.
But to do it the old-fashioned way.
What's going on, Brian?
Not too much. Well, do you want to jump into some news, or do you have anything that? All right, we'll jump.
Is there any Microsoft news in here that we can we complain at them? Is there any Windows news? Anything exciting going on in the Windows land that we can complain about?
Actually, we do. So we have here. Actually, let's go straight. Microsoft has been complaining about Apple, and they've been complaining about how they can't monetize cloud gaming, which would be their, Xbox Game Pass streaming, with the fee that Apple puts on their store,
30%,
which is a similar, same issue they run into pretty much everywhere else. How if you're charging that much on a subscription fee, they're having to mark their product up 30% just to sell it on that whole marketplace. So so this is them pushing back a little bit. They had things in the EU where there was I don't know, it was Google with the big fine, but they had some decisions made in the EU where they have to make some changes to allowing people in the store. I assume this is Microsoft pushing so that they can start pushing this to the United States and get it to where maybe in the United States we can get a court case going and they can start trying to push against, just like, Tim Sweeney's now not the only one, because before this was just Tim Sweeney saying this, right? It was Epic saying this. Now we've got Microsoft pushing on Apple the exact same way, and I assume they'll push on Google, if the changes that have happened recently in Google haven't made that already possible for them. But I'm thinking this is kind of a hint at things to come, because Microsoft hasn't really said anything about this that I've heard, not any big statements pushing against Apple and the 30% fee. I thought it was only really Sweeney and Epic making a big deal of it, and then streamers. But here we got Microsoft starting to jump into that race, so we'll see if we're finally going to see the end of the 30% commission. I mean, Microsoft knows servers. They know costs of doing business. They've done it with Xbox. They've done it with, lots of the Microsoft store. I think they could go to court and say, we know this industry. We know that you could do it for less.
Sure.
And maybe get it done.
But see, them crying to Apple that they can't monetize their service, why should Apple care? Apple's not.
Well,
I mean, this is the
only if it weren't for the case that the two main companies that hold 99% of the market or whatever it is of the mobile market, if they weren't doing the exact same thing, then I would say, sure, they could go to the competition. But what competition are they going to go to that doesn't have a 30% fee?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I'm not arguing.
Yeah, so I'm saying
point.
that's my only thing is like, I'd love to say, well, I usually say, well, then go to the alternative and people will follow. The problem is there's no alternative. Everybody's doing the same thing.
But there is an alternative. And the alternative is what the alternative is what everybody else is doing. You don't pay, you can't sign up for Game Pass in the app. You make them do. I mean, Twitter does this right now. When you buy Twitter
Does
Premium,
Apple fight against that?
No.
Will Apple go after you for
They
getting
will
a
not.
subscription seat outside of the store, kind of like what the other stores were complaining about?
I have a Spotify subscription. I pay that.
And you pay that through Spotify.
Yeah, it's like.
Now, I thought Spotify was a special deal that they made. I thought that was only Spotify that got, because I remember mentioning that when there was, maybe it was when Epic was talking about it, and there was a caveat that I think Spotify got a special deal, and I don't know, I never heard of anyone else getting that deal of not having to stay in the store.
But there's so Netflix is a great example. Most people have, oh, I shouldn't say most. A lot of people have Netflix, and they pay through Netflix.com, and they can sign in through Netflix on their phone. I have YouTube TV, for example. That's my cable service. I pay that money directly to Google. I use YouTube TV on my phone. I don't understand why Microsoft, what they're saying is the 30% commission fee makes it impossible for Microsoft to effectively monetize its cloud gaming service offerings. So that is not enough for YouTube TV. It's not enough for Netflix. It's not enough for Hulu. It's not enough for Paramount Plus. I mean, all these other services have apps, Brian, and they're all available on iOS, but most people pay their subscription through the website itself. They sign up on a computer or sign up on the phone in a browser, and they do it that way. So what's the issue?
And here, that's what I'm saying.
Are most people going to their downloading the Game Pass app on their phone and signing up, or are they signing up on an Xbox or signing up on a computer?
Yeah, I don't understand why they wouldn't just not allow signups inside of the app if you don't want to.
Or allow signups, but who the hell's going to sign? Who's going to download Game Pass on their phone? That's what Twitter does. It's $100 a year for premium on a desktop. It's $130 if you sign up on the iPhone.
That's crazy. That's funny.
And what's the oh my God, the service that all the podcasters are on where they can charge money and
not Blueberry.
Patreon. Patreon's the same way. You can subscribe to Patreon on your phone. It's the creator gets less, or you sign up on the computer like everybody else does, like me, and then you just log into the app. So no, you're not required to do it, but this is the case. If you're going to do payments in the app, you have to use Apple's store, and then that's when they take their 30%. I don't know what the hell Microsoft's complaining about. This is every other company that has an app that has a subscription service deals with the exact same thing.
And this is something last month in the EU, that's where Apple updated their thing to allow external payment platforms in their system. And if they do that, then I don't see an issue.
They're not going to do it in the US.
And that's what it looks like.
Unless a court mandates them to do it.
Because that's where we were seeing these issues before, is they weren't allowing people to go and pay outside the service, and they were forcing them into this.
No, that's not true. They were allowing people to pay outside the service. They were not allowing you to offer in-app purchases that did not go through them. That's what got Epic banned, is that you wanted to buy V-Bucks on iOS Fortnite.
They were buying them in the store, the app.
It was redirecting you to the Epic website to purchase it there, cutting Apple out of the thing. That's against Apple's terms of service. It's their store. They can do what they want. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the result is Epic won, at least in the EU. But literally, I mean, there's dozens of apps on my phone that I have subscriptions or pay for things through that are all outside iOS, and they all work because I'm not doing the payment on the phone. So the hell with Microsoft.
Yeah, and that's where, because it looks like Apple has now, ever since these changes, I think that's a reasonable solution from them. As far as long as they allow you to make a purchase outside that doesn't have to have that huge tax.
Yep.
then you're good. And I think if this becomes the standard, Steam, it'll be interesting to see where they go with something like this, allowing, I don't know how they'd even do it on Steam, but
I don't know that you can buy.
They do.
Can you buy games on the phone through Steam? Probably not.
They have an app, but
they do.
Really,
I don't remember. I don't think I can on my phone.
I've not really purchased anything through the phone, so I'm
now,
not
why would you?
Whether or not that's an issue.
That's kind of what I'm saying is like, why would you purchase a Steam game on your phone, aware of which you cannot play it?
Make it more of a directory, and it's pretty much a directory, a chat app, their authenticator app, and then it's a place you can go browse information about
Correct.
things. I mean, and if that's what you need to do on some of these apps that they're wanting to charge you, have it to where anything that go and purchases are done through some other interface.
But you can't do that. That's the problem.
So
you can't direct somebody. You can't direct somebody in app. That's the key.
You have to capture everybody outside, and that's the problem.
Yes.
Is how do you offer good service then? If you're like, well, just go to our website and do all that.
How does Netflix do it?
Yeah, so they've still got to link people out. I mean, people have to just realize, just like Netflix, people don't think, well, I go and manage everything on Netflix on my phone, and that's the only place I can do Netflix.
And some people probably do. And those people, Netflix is eating 30% of those transactions. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think you could, in whatever legal way they allow, just tell people you can go manage your account, on our website.
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
offer to sell them anything. Manage your account there, and then you'll see the places that you can go purchase and manage your payment system and whatever else.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. I don't love Apple. I don't love what they do. But at the end of the day, it's their app store. It's their infrastructure, and everybody has decided to use it. So if you want to make your app available on iOS, you got to play by the rules. I agree the rules suck, but I mean, it's just like watching football. The rules are the rules. You can hate the rules. You can think the rules are stupid and need to change. That's fine. They're still the rules. I think the new NFL rule on roughing the passer is beyond stupid, but it's the rule. Yeah. So if you're a defensive lineman and you're going to hit the quarterback, you're going to get fined for 15 yards. It happens every game. Yeah. Like, even though the rule's stupid, it's the rule. So now, obviously the case in the EU makes it a little less lucrative for Apple, but I can promise you this, Brian, I know you and I disagree on this. Unless they are mandated by a court to do that in the U.S., there is not a snowball's chance in hell that Apple's just going to voluntarily cut out potentially 30% of hundreds of billions of dollars a year worth of transactions that they get through their payment services. Yeah. There's just no benefit for them to do it. And that's why the woe is me from Microsoft. Why does Apple care? They don't. You can hear the world's tiniest violin. Reasonable. They don't care. Yeah. They have their own game service. It's called isn't it called like Arcade Plus or something like that?
Yeah, they have an arcade subscription that you can do through this.
So who cares?
Yeah. And they'll push you towards that. Netflix has the same thing too. They have that gaming system or gaming service that seems to be growing pretty big as well.
Yeah. So there you go. Woe was me for the folks over at Microsoft.
Well, I've got some really interesting crime and law ones. Do you want to talk about some of those things? There's some really interesting ones.
I can pretend to be a lawyer.
So, Cards Against Humanity. I didn't really know much about the company, but it happens to be that they are incredibly liberal.
Oh, and you've never played Cards Against Humanity, have you?
Well, no, I have, but I'm saying I
haven't noticed. You didn't notice in the cards some of the interesting verbiage that they use that kind of
I know that. I know they're foul, but I didn't really look for politics.
No, I'm not talking about foul language. I'm just saying the ways in which, yes, there's obviously a lot of non-PC things in Cards Against Humanity, but it was obvious to me, depending on what expansion decks you have, they very much toe the liberal line, even in the cards in the way. Now, obviously, there's some of the funniest things you can do in Cards Against Humanity, the most politically incorrect things, which is quite ironic. Yeah. But yeah, they are deciding to sue our dad, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, so
Daddy Elon.
Daddy Elon. So they bought some land because they wanted to block President Trump's Texas-Mexico border wall. They bought strategic land, the company, because they didn't want him to be able to finish it, and they put no trespassing signs and, had it as a section that would prevent that part. It'd be a lane for illegals to come through in their little heaven, their utopia, right? And so Elon has property right next to it, and supposedly he, when he was staging everything for his SpaceX launches, parked some vehicles, cleared some vegetation and stored some gravel and things like that on their property for about 6 months. And so they're suing him for that 6 months for, what is it?
$15 million?
$15 million, I think I saw. I was looking for that again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's $15 million they're suing them for. And so I just thought this was interesting because I didn't know anything about that company. And they're kind of sleazy in multiple ways. I mean, of course, you don't want someone coming and destroying their land, but they're not using that land for anything. They don't want to use it for anything. They want it to just be kind of like someone who parks on a domain name. Which is pretty much what they're trying to do.
Here's the thing. If you own land and you have no trespassing, that's fine. The idea, and this is what they claim, quote, SpaceX's abuse of this property has not only destroyed its natural condition, but has even caused greater harm to Cards Against Humanity by virtue of the damage it has caused Cards Against Humanity's relationship with its paying supporters. The idea that they can justify that as $15 million worth of damage is laughable, and I would guess that it will likely be laughed out of a courtroom for the same reason, because it's an absurd. Somebody trespasses and destroys property, that's fine. I don't, if they're
going to have to prove damages.
Well, you have to prove, yeah, and so obviously they could
Musk
say
for a lot less than that could come and make the thing a golf course for him if that's what they really wanted.
Yeah. So the idea here that he did $15 million worth of damage to them and to their relationship with their customers
somewhere in Texas
is beyond absurd.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I assume if anything, Elon Musk is told that he has to fix whatever they changed on the land, depending on what that was or wasn't, and that will be likely the end of this. I can't imagine a court saying that if you trespass, so if my neighbor puts something on puts something on the edge of my property, I can take them to court not only for the cost of whatever they did, but I can claim some irreparable damage to
your radio
the value.
Listeners are being affected because it's affecting your mental state, and that costs money.
If you get that in front of the right judge, you actually probably have a chance with how screwed up as our society is right now. So maybe you get some wacko liberal judge and in New York or whatever, or California, and they agree to this. What a I love Cards Against Humanity. I haven't played it anymore recently not because of this, just because of some of the stuff that they started doing back in 2016, and I probably won't play it again. And I sure as hell won't buy anything from them again.
Well, and that's my mentality is I'm stubborn like that. If it's something where you have... You're
not stubborn, you're principled.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a company that is anti-me, which is what you see today. I mean, you never would have thought that this would be normal, that I would have companies that are anti your average American. I'm the average person in America looks like me, right? In general. And they hate those people. And that's just the weirdest thing to me that we'd have that happen in such a short period of time, especially. We got some more crime ones. Let's talk really quickly. We've got your favorite stock here, GameStop. The FTC has hit their CEO with a $1 million fine over their Wells Fargo shares. So they're going to have to pay a $1 million penalty, alleging that that he violated the antitrust law with his acquisition of shares in Wells Fargo Company. He failed to file a form that he was required to submit to antitrust agencies under the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act after his Wells Fargo share purchases exceeded a certain threshold, according to a statement Wednesday from the FTC. So he amassed those shares. Cohen periodically emailed Wells Fargo's leadership as he amassed those shares, including its chief executive officer, with suggestions to improve its business and seek a board seat. That effort to influence Wells Fargo's business decisions meant he couldn't claim an investment-only exemption under the HSR, according to the FTC. So it sounds like he was trying to put money in the company and then suggest that they put him, which I guess is illegal. I don't know a lot about that side of the business, but it's pretty much trying to buy yourself onto a board, which is kind of illegal in some ways, isn't it? I mean,
well,
they usually buy a stake that then gets them to sit on, maybe not be a voting member of the board, but they can sit and give maybe opinions on the board.
So there's nothing wrong with buying enough shares to become a large enough shareholder to have voting rights. It sounds like the issue here, and from reading this, the issue is that in purchasing these shares, the chief executive officer, the CEO of GameStop, claimed that he was doing this just as an investment, right? Just simply buying the shares and being done. However, he was communicating with, and don't you love kind of the irony? Like GameStop is a crumbling dumpster fire right now, and he's emailing his buddies over at Wells Fargo like, hey, I run a successful company that's not completely and totally in the dump right now. Here's some business suggestions for you. And with that, you can't claim that you're just doing something for shares and, and then also be trying to influence the direction of the company. I think that's the issue. Buying the shares isn't the issue. Commenting to members of the board that you may or may not know, I don't think is the issue. It seemingly has to do with suggestions to improve its business that went beyond the exemption or the investment only exemption under whatever filings were completed. That seems to be the issue.
And he did make a corrective filing in January of 2021 for the 2018 purchases, according to the complaint. So he made some purchases in 2020 that put him over. He made a corrective file months later, and
that's fine. Somebody caught it.
Yeah, but this is kind of makes me think. Well, did he really do something? I mean, he did something technically, but sometimes you do something and realize, well, I don't have that right form. I got to get filled out, and you fill it out, and then you send it, right?
Yeah, it happens with people's taxes all the time. You forgot a 1099 or something like that, and you file an amended return. Isn't that the point
of a corrective filing? Like,
yes.
If he's going to get in trouble anyways, why do the corrective filing in the first place? Let him figure it out in court. If they're going to take you to court after you do a corrective filing and point out to them that you made a mistake. He informed them he made a mistake.
Is this not another potential swing and a miss for old Lena Khan and the FTC?
The last line of this changed my whole opinion when it said September 2020 is when he bought the shares through, and then in January of 21 he sent the correct filing. Okay, that sounds like totally normal business to me. Oops, I bought too many shares. I need to do this. Because do you notice, I mean, you'd have to prove that he had intent, not necessarily in the law's eyes, but as far as my opinion's eyes, you'd have to prove to me that he had intent to break the law. And this just wasn't, I happen to buy more shares than I need to qualify for this filing or whatever it is. And then he does it. Or he reaches out and realizes, for me to do this, I have to file this way. Let me send that out. It was only months later, October, November, December, 3 months. And they're going after him with what, $1 million? Was this one the $1 million fine? Yeah. 3 months. It took him to figure out and send his correction. And they're trying to go for him for $1 million.
Brian, this sounds like another example of your hard-earned tax dollars at work to protect, and more importantly, Brian, not just to protect, to battle against the evil, rich, wealthy people that are truly holding people like you and me down. The reason that I can't get ahead, the reason that I go to the store, my groceries are $400 is because of this guy, right? It's not because of out of control government spending. It's not because of incompetent energy policy from the current administration. It's not Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. It's none of that. It's this bastard over at GameStop. That's the reason that mortgage rates are 8.5%.
When you grew up in a small family, how can it be your fault? I mean, honestly,
this is just another shocking. Well, I shouldn't say shock. It's past shocking at this point. This is another example of probably another lawsuit that the FTC is going to spend a whole bunch of money on for nothing and will likely lose in court.
Yeah,
like they've done with literally everything else that we've talked about over the last couple of years. Lena Khan is the worst head of the FTC that I can ever remember.
And I saw an article
She's
this
freaking
morning
terrible.
where people were trying to really frame her. They're like, there's people on both sides of the aisle that hate her and both sides of the aisle that love her. And I was just like, I can't, maybe I can't think of the people on the Republican side that love her. I mean, unless they're really anti-business libertarians, but she's not libertarian. I guarantee you that.
You can love her all you want. It doesn't change the fact that the FTC continues to lose all of these court battles.
And hopefully they're going to be done here soon.
Their whole big thing was the whole non-compete thing that I talked about.
Yeah.
This whole big thing. What happened with it? It was freaking thrown out by a judge.
Yep.
I mean, they just lose. So, the Activision Blizzard thing. Can you imagine the kind of money that the FTC spent litigating that over and over again, only to be laughed out of a courtroom?
And that's the only part that really upsets me is that's where it's affecting me. I love the fact that they're losing because that's them not accomplishing things, right?
Yes, government losing is always a win.
We couldn't ask for a better situation where they just keep constantly losing because nothing is happening that's really bad. Just a lot of stupid stuff that's happening that's not accomplishing anything, and you're wasting people's time. But they're also wasting people's money, and that's where it gets me because the money is from us, and they treat it like, oh, look at they treat taxes like it's income for them. No,
correct.
It's not income. You shouldn't be trying to get a higher income. Your goal should be to spend the least amount possible. That's not your income. You're just in charge of spending it. Quit thinking it is, that's the crazy thing about government is they think it is money is like their taxes is their income. No, it's not. You're purely in charge of spending it for us. You're supposed to be spending it wisely. But anyways, now here's the case that did win. So IBM filed a suit against Zynga. And can you guess what for?
Farmville. Was it really?
Back in the
that's
day,
great.
Yes. So Zynga's Farmville, supposedly
Farmville
IBM has some patents. Oh,
I mean, dude, when Farmville came out, Facebook and Farmville, I mean, it was the talk of the town. I mean, I can only imagine the kind of money that Zynga made at the time with Farmville. It was insane. I was in middle school, I think, at the time. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I used to, I created, work on these scripts that would sit there and automatically farm for me, like in JavaScript in the browser, and totally broke my game. Like on my game, I had farms stacked like 30 high on each one because you could hack it to where you could have multiple farms.
So you're the reason that I couldn't get ahead. So you really...
Yeah, you're the reason, yeah. I just had it to work because I could get unlimited everything that I wanted pretty much at that point. That made it so I quit playing it.
Listen
I wanted
to this.
to stop playing it, so I ruined my fun.
In March of 2010, at its peak, the game had 83.7 million monthly active users, and daily active users peaked at 34.5 million.
Yeah, it was the hot game.
That's
of the day.
Nuts. 34.5 million players a day.
I mean, I don't go on there. I don't hear about it anymore.
Well, somebody bought Zynga back a couple of years ago. Who owns Zynga now?
I thought that was Microsoft now.
No, it's Take-Two that owns them.
Oh, Take-Two has Zynga. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
that was a recent acquisition. That was in 2022.
Yeah, but they're happy about that.
Take-Two
44.9 million after you just acquire them.
Take-Two Interactive bought the company a cash and stock deal that was valued at about $12.7 billion. So that was back January 10th of 2022. So it's been almost 3 years. In a couple months, 2.5 years, I guess.
One interesting, recently, Zynga recently pulled out of its Web3 project SugarTown and sold it to a new company called D20. Which you would think D20 would be some sort of an RPG.
Yeah.
I hadn't really heard about that. But yeah, so who knows? But this is interesting. I'm trying to find like what it is about it that they're claiming. I'm sure if I read through the paper.
So IBM won almost $45 million in an infringement suit against them?
Yes, and I was trying to find what it is, like what was the action that you did in game that they had patented. I haven't really seen that.
It claims that IBM owned, which would actually make sense, owns some sort of web-based communication patents. That's what it claims. So probably something protocol-based with how the game communicated with the server, or I'm trying to remember with Farmville. You have to excuse my memory. It's been 15 years. Could you like visit other people's farms and things?
You could go to other people's farms. You could collect certain types of resources from them, like 5 of them.
So then I would guess it's got something to do with that communication.
Farms
maybe that IBM had the patent over, and Zynga apparently infringed. And it looks like it was a bunch of games as well. Crosswords with Friends, CSR Racing 2, Empires and Puzzles, Harry Potter Puzzle. So it was something in their netcode that IBM had the patent for, obviously.
Farmville 2, the variations of their Farmville 2, and Farmville 3. So something in the base.
100% in their netcode.
Yep. So we'll see if that gets to where they lower that. I mean, that seems like a huge amount, but. Yeah,
well, I tell you what, though, with all those games and the money that they made, if IBM truly owns the patent, and this judge obviously sees that they do, then it's a lot of money. Obviously, I don't have $45 million
as well, so it's kind of, you can't really say one person was biased. You had a whole whole jury that said this. So
while that's not a small sum of money for a patent for a company that was very successful in marketing and profiting off of that, I don't know that it's that outlandish. I'm not sure Zynga's making any money now, but at its peak, you can only imagine the kind of money that they were pulling down with 35.5 million active users a day. You can only imagine what that kind of profit looked like. I mean, there was a point in time where, looking at Zynga, they had 2,500 employees. I mean, it's a massive. That's like massive.
They were
industry
one of the
main
like online mini game companies. For a while.
2,500 employees is nuts.
Yep.
Actually, as of 2021, they had 2,900 employees. They had 50 employees short of 3,000 people. This is a massive company.
Yeah, still doing good. Here's another one. So here's a case that happened. It was a copyright case, and it went to court and has finally come out of all of its appeals. And this is the Internet Archive copyright case for the book publishing.
Did we not talk about this?
They were doing these rentals. Yeah. So this one was one that was brought up a while ago, and they finally have run out of appeals, or they've shut down their appeals. So they're going to be paying, I think it says, an undisclosed amount of money to publishers for this. And I don't know, libraries do this. I'm wondering if they can adjust how they do this and still continue.
Absolutely. It's got everything to do with the process in which they are loaning books out digitally. That's what it's got to do with.
So I think if they can fix that, I don't see why they wouldn't, because they're arguing that this is piracy. I don't think they were doing with the intent of piracy. I think they thought they were following the proper procedures like they would with a library, and obviously there's something different about how they did it versus how these public libraries, or they're the bigger fish and the public libraries get away with it. I mean, that could be a possibility too. But I assume there's something about how they were doing this, so they talk about it. The digital versions of these books would represent physical copies it had access to. You could put your name down on a waiting list where users would essentially share access to the digital representation of the book.
That's probably
ticketing
the
system was put in place for users to read the ebook copies of them. However, when the waitlist restriction was removed in early 2020, Hachette Book Group sued the Internet Archive, claiming doing so constitutes copyright infringement. So it sounds like they were renting out more copies than what they physically had. Is that what
sure that's exactly
you heard out of that?
Doing. Yeah.
So it says National Emergency Library at the, okay, well, I'm going to go back a little bit. So all this stems from a decision made at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. As lockdowns started to happen and the public was no longer able to go to libraries, thereby giving them less access to books, the Internet Archive opened up its library to the public, where users could lend books. And then the National Emergency Library, as the scheme was called, operated from March 24 to June 2020, providing a temporary collection of books that supported emergency remote teaching, research activities, independent scholarship, and intellectual stimulation. So it sounds like they went and got books and didn't care about the fact of them having a legal copy anymore. Like, this is for the greater good, which I know liberals will say sometimes, and then do something illegal or something that hurts somebody. But here they figured, well, we got to make sure children still have access to books, and it's an emergency and COVID, and we need to do things illegally to make sure everybody's safe. And here's the result. So, welcome to another fallout of the pandemic.
Yeah,
people doing things that they weren't supposed to do because they thought people needed it.
Yeah, this has got everything to do with them not having for all intents and purposes, the license,
which they can easily fix going forward. I mean, it sounds like they've already kind of undone it. They corrected the one issue in a legal sense. And if that system worked and it really was a benefit and it saves, libraries from having, or people maybe who don't, because for a period of time, I couldn't go to a library. There were no libraries and I was out of city limits. And so I didn't have access to a library. Where would I go at that period in time?
You don't have a county library?
They had city libraries. And so,
interesting.
And so we couldn't go to a regular library. This should be for those types of people. Now I live in city limits and I can have a library card if I want to.
And now you pay city taxes.
I think they should have an internet-based library. Why should it be based on where you live? If it's a digital representation of a book and they're basing on maybe being a United States citizen or however they're doing it. Yeah.
Now I will say that I am a proud library card holder. Now, while I've never rented a book from the local library, I have used their online book thing before, and that's worked pretty well. But I'm a resident of the county. I pay county taxes, and therefore I am obviously entitled to sign up for a free library card and use this digital online service, which you wouldn't be able to use, and for good reason, because you're not investing into to this system locally at all. Yeah. So I understand.
That's what I'm saying. If they have a system that works off of maybe federal taxes or, because I'm assuming the local ones, they're buying books with your local taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want that open
if you
to
want
everybody.
Something
I don't want to wait.
I
don't want to have to wait
statewide
3 years to read a book because a bunch of people that don't live in my county that aren't paying for anything are on the wait list. To hell with that. I mean, go use your own library.
And they're going to have to figure out, well, how do we break up this demographic? Like, who's paying for this? And if it's done off of donations, who can rent it? Is it a worldwide thing? Does that work legally? I mean, they're going to have to figure out all this out because when it's in the local library, it's easier for them to determine the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, when it's a physical book.
Yeah, it's a physical book and it's in a physical zone. But when you go and there's no lines of restrictions and, you don't have clear, well, what can we do here? Or where do we serve these books to? How does that work with the law? I mean, are they then going to be able to come back and say, well, you rented this book to someone who lived out of the country. Now that's illegal and you're going to pay another fine. I mean, there's so many different things. And I think it's because we're coming up to things that never were a problem before. Everything was so compartmentalized, libraries, everything else. And now you go to something like this and it's like, well, that doesn't fit in the old way of doing things anymore, so they're going to have to figure it out.
Well, but see, I disagree with you. It does fit in the old ways because they obviously knew what they should and shouldn't have been doing, and they decided that they wanted to do something that was likely not in their purview. And this comes back down, you might be asking yourself, listening, why the hell are Brian and Nick talking about libraries? This is simply something that we talk about all the time. Copyright infringement, just in a different form. And it appears obvious, Brian, that they knew what they were doing, knew that there could be ramifications of it, decided to do it anyway, which at the time they probably thought, okay, we're doing this. There's obviously a lot going on in the country right now. This is a good thing to do. However, copyright law is still copyright law. And if they broke it and infringed copyright, then
people's books that they were illegally lending out, preventing them from going and purchasing and handing money to the company that created the book is the problem.
Yeah, it is. And I would assume because they did this during this period of time, there was some leeway, and that's why they settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. I'm sure this was because there was likely doesn't appear that there was any malice.
It wasn't vindictive, right? Yeah,
exactly.
No malice.
This is not the Internet Archive is not running a book piracy service. I would assume that they just paid some damages, justifiably for potential lost revenue on selling books. And they aren't going to do that again, would be my guess. I'm glad that they settled out of court, which means it was likely a very small, hopefully a very small fine.
Some compensation.
Yeah, which is justifiable. If you weren't following the way things are supposed to be done and you got caught, yeah, there should be compensation. I don't care if you think it was for the greater good or not. I mean,
now
I have a non-compete agreement. So if I decide that, well, my voice is really important, Brian, I should be able to do whatever the hell I want. I don't think a judge is going to take very well to that. They're going to slap me down and make me pay my previous employer's
They'll make an
legal fees.
example of you.
As they should, because that doesn't allow me to break an agreement that I have.
Yeah.
I mean, if you and I have a business agreement you're going to provide me a service for X number of dollars, and you stop providing me the service and you claim it's for the greater good of some other stupid nonsense, I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to win every time.
So here's one thing really, I want to get your opinion on this. This is totally unrelated. Sure. So there's a video game I was trying playing, I was trying it out instead of Raid, and it's called Dragonair. I don't remember if you heard about it. Because of the FTC thing, their merger was rejected, and so they just cut off, and they said, we're not serving the United States anymore, cut the whole game out, and you can't do it in the United States at all anymore. And this is coming down to their, like, if you're going to act like this, we're not going to do business in your whole country. And obviously they don't need us, because they're doing just fine in other countries. But I thought that was kind of surprising. That was the result of one of these FTC decisions that came and prevented a company from being taken over. And so now they're refusing to do any business in the United States.
Especially if the United States is not your bread and butter, which it sounds like this game is obviously. Is it big in China or something? Yeah, somewhere over in Asia.
Yeah, it's over in Asia, different places in Asia, probably China.
So if you're able to operate a business and have success and not have to deal with the which when it really comes down to, when you really boil this down, Brian, this is anti-business. It's not legislation, but it's anti-business practices that are being enforced here by the Federal Trade Commission. When a business doesn't need the business, they're not going to put up with it. Why go through a lengthy court battle that you'll probably win, but why go through a lengthy court battle with the Federal Trade Commission when you can just cut the whole market out and make all your money over in Asia? Who cares? Good for them.
They probably know that they can come back next year if they want to and try again, and try the merger or whatever they're going to do once this FTC commission is gone. Who knows if they'll eventually come back, but right now they don't want to bother playing at all.
No, and you know what? That's what needs to happen for the Federal Trade Commission to stop acting in the way that they are.
Well, and all the people that play that game, that because I was casually playing it, so I'm not heartbroken that the thing died, but it's kind of annoying because I spent like $40 in the game total, and so I asked,
$40 more than I've ever spent on a mobile game.
So I was like, can I get a refund, because I don't have access to the things that I purchased. Like I haven't been able to play with them. They deleted the whole game after I got them, and they wouldn't give me a refund to play.
No, and well, now see, that I kind of have an issue with. They decided that
I'm buying something I'm supposed to have digitally access to, and they've taken away my digital access to whatever I've supposedly purchased with no compensation or explanation,
and
other than tough beans.
What did they say to you?
They just said he doesn't qualify for a refund.
See, now so I said originally that good for them, and I stand by that. But if you're going to make the decision to drop out of a market and stop providing the service,
when you were offering purchases that supposedly gave you access to things in the game, right? That's the caveat for me.
Yeah, I think I have a huge issue with that, and they absolutely should provide. They very well could have. They very well could have fought this in court and won. They chose not to, and now you as the consumer have something
and now I'm the
for.
one losing out, right?
Yeah, no, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I think that's very.
And if it weren't for the fact that I put money into the game, and then I got really busy and didn't play it for a month or whatever, and then it was gone. And so it's like I didn't even get the benefit of what I put the money in. Too, and now they won't give me a refund because you haven't, it's been a month since you purchased it. Yeah, but I haven't even played it. I didn't get the benefit of that. I don't care if I purchased it. I haven't been able to redeem it, use it. Why don't I get my money back on that? And they didn't even give us warning that it was not like, hey, here in 6 months we're gonna exit United States market. They were like, here in days we're done, and they'll be shut down by the 16th or whatever, and it was gone.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, so I'm not heartbroken, but it is annoying because it's like, is that something that games can just do? Come in, get money and then just shut down your service, and because these are things that people buy in anticipation of having a better game later, right? That's the reason you buy these microtransactions is for a better game later, not something maybe right now. And then and then they do that. Like, if it weren't for microtransactions, or if they could give me a game to play outside of it, outside the marketplace and let me play there, but that there's nothing. They took it off of PC. They took it off of all.
Why can't you download
you
download an APK and play?
Because I can't connect to their servers. They block the United States. I'd have to play through a VPN and play on a China server.
Yeah, that's a pain.
I have to start over. I mean, it's just not worth it anymore. Like, they've gotten rid of all American accounts. I mean, it's just the wrong way to do it if you're going to do
100%.
it. And they were just kind of like, screw you, America. But like, why are you doing screw you, America to your people that were supporting your company? I understand we don't agree with it, right? We're the ones
when
being
you also
punished.
don't have a say.
Yeah, we don't have a say, but we're the ones ending up with the result of these, Lena Khan and these other people types of decisions.
Because of the way they acted, I hope they don't try and coming back to the United States.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's linked to Tencent. I think it was maybe a company that was supposed to merge with Tencent, and then like it got blocked, or I don't know what it was. But yeah, so they just stepped out and said we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty miserable. That's a real. Hopefully, for their sake, they don't try coming back to the U.S. market.
Yeah,
because
because they kind of screwed people out. A bunch of people. I don't know how many people, but probably a lot of people.
I'd say to you, Brian, you'd be a fool if they did come back in to
jump right back on the boat and be like, here, I'm going to give you more money so you can dump when you're mad.
Yeah, I would never play that game or any game that company makes, because at any given point they can just do whatever and be done. Now, somebody might make the argument, well, this can happen with any game anyway. And there's some truth to that. There's been plenty of games and services that have shut down. And
the thing is, they didn't shut down the game. The game still exists. They just won't offer it to us.
Correct.
And that's the difference. If a game can't afford to run and they shut down, like, I understand that. That happens, and they'd love to keep it open. But this company was like, well, we could stay here, but we don't want to. Even though they could have made money. I don't know if they would have had to operate under a different name or whatever it is they had to adjust since the merger didn't go through. Just like if Microsoft merger didn't go through, they would have had to undo a lot of things that they did.
I hear what you're saying. I don't see that much of a difference between a company that shuts down and what this company did. Now, yes, obviously the circumstances.
They just shut down all U.S. operations is equivalent of what they did.
Yeah, but
we're going to shut down all U.S. operations because they may have had contracts. They may have had offices here that they were like, well, since we're not able to do this merger, we're not going to be able to use any things. Like, let's just close everything down and cut our losses now before this costs us more money.
But that's why I'm saying
that would be the thinking that got us there.
Sure, but I'm saying I don't see a big difference between what this company did and a company going out of business and shutting down a service. I mean, to me, that's
what I mean, though.
It's
like going out of business in your United States market.
Sure,
right? That's
which is what they did
because they couldn't stay in business in the way it was working without changing something, because the merger that they were operating under the assumption of it being accepted fell apart.
Yeah, what a mess. Pretty crappy customer service. I'll tell you that.
Well, we probably have some unhappy customers of the Tor dark web browser.
Oh,
because reportedly this has been unmasked by police.
Uh-oh. That's very not good.
Yeah, Tor says it's left with more questions than answers after an investigation finds police have been able to identify several Tor users by surveilling nodes in data centers. So the Tor web browser, which has about 2 million users, and it anonymizes them through encryption and rerouting of traffic through multiple destinations to kind of hop and lose them. They're finding out that it's not exactly anonymous. And so they were able to go through and track and de-anonymize users using a time analysis method.
Sure.
The police have been surveilling Tor servers in data centers and have used the Ricochet chat service to identify Tor users and determine their entry points to the network, according to the report.
To me, this is no different than, it's not no different. It's similar to blockchain, where, yes, your blockchain wallet doesn't have an identifier. Now, unless I tell you what my blockchain wallet is, you'd have no way to know it's me.
Right?
But You follow enough transactions, you see where you see where tokens or whatever you're moving around is going. You can very easily, you can piece together who is responsible and whose Bitcoin wallet or cryptocurrency wallet something is based on transactions, and simply doing what they were doing, looking at a whole bunch of different nodes and seeing where all the traffic was going and being able to piece it together. It's exactly the same thing with blockchain.
Well, and that's something I find kind of funny is you look at blockchain and people using blockchain, people using Tor are wanting some form of an anonymity, some form of maybe making a payment that doesn't get tracked. Mm-hmm. But if you look, the two things that seem to be the most trackable now are things like this, because there is a record kept. Now here they're recording the record, right? They're sitting in a data center and just recording things that are happening.
Sure.
But you look at blockchain, everything's recorded. I mean, everybody's
that's the only
sending,
way it works.
Hey, somebody did all these things. And it's, it's telling everybody all these things that somebody did. Well, the second that somebody is identified, then everybody knows everything that you've done and all the transactions you've done. With who? If they can figure out who the other side of that transaction was.
Sure.
It's just, if we think it's for anonymity, but I think the government knows exactly. They can undo and figure out exactly who's doing transactions in blockchain. And then now you found out they can tell you who's doing Tor traffic. Remember when they were trying to figure out the old Russian hack and they somehow were telling you at what minute this Russian hacker opened up their VPN software, and then they connected over to this server, and then they connected over to this server on a VPN software, and you're wondering how in the world they did that after they rewound the internet to figure out what happened on certain days in history, and you think that they can't figure out what your little Tor or blockchain information is? I don't believe it.
This is interesting. Malwarebytes, which not only is good software if you're dealing with a relative's computer that's bogged down with malware, they're also a really big security firm because obviously that's the realm they deal in. They said this, and as you mentioned before, they were able to use time patterns to track network activity and exit points. And the fewer active Tor nodes supporting the network, the easier that surveillance becomes. Tor was designed to have hundreds of thousands of nodes across the world. However, Malwarebytes is only able to identify about 8,000 active relays as of this result. And 8,000 is still a lot. If there were 280,000 Tor nodes across the world, police would be screwed because there'd be no way to track that. But with 8,000, you can start. You're watching a couple dozen or maybe a couple hundred of these 8,000 nodes. You can pretty quickly start putting that puzzle together because there's so few endpoints. Right? Absolutely. Yep. And it's just at a broader scale, it's not possible right now. Now, I'll argue in the future, being able to sit and sniff 200,000 nodes will be something that will be a lot easier to do. But right now, with 8,000 nodes, they probably don't have to be tapped into that. They probably don't have to be sniffing too much traffic to truly figure out exactly what's going on. I will say this. Yeah. I've never used Tor before. I've installed it a couple of times. I've never really gotten into it.
It's built into my browser, but I have it turned off.
Yeah,
my Brave browser.
And I just wonder who's still using it and for what.
Well, and that's the thing is if a bunch of people were using it, and the thing is if they branded Tor as something for freedom, then I could back that. But Tor to me has never been about freedom. It's usually about doing something really scummy on the internet, criminal activity, and not wanting anyone to see. It's not a legitimate anonymizer as you would normally think about it. It has a really bad image, and I think that this is something that they need to fix. I mean, I don't mind them if they're going to be mostly used for negative things. I don't mind having the negative connotations with it. Totally fine with me. But
this comes down.
They did fix it, so I think it was for a limited time.
Well, I mean, and here's the reality of it. It's confusing. It's complicated. It's very technical. So the idea that you would have a large group of what I'll call regular internet users using Tor is a pipe dream. I mean, it's just not. It's not going to happen. There's
That's
no
where you'd
reason.
have to rebrand it and kind of get.
Why would I use Tor? Exactly.
I don't see a reason right now. Let's say the government was really starting to crack down on people. Then it would be a legitimate reason to use Tor, right?
Sure.
Because you could say they can control all the VPNs. Like you could justify it in your head if things were getting really bad and you needed a way to anonymously be able to communicate that you truly trusted, right? Because I can't guarantee you that I trust WhatsApp. They have, and even Discord just enabled end-to-end encryption,
which is great.
I am fully of the belief that the U.S. government has the ability through crazy fast computers to decrypt encrypted streams of data traffic.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't, you can say for my peace of mind, I'm always using all these secure encrypted things, but if the government wants to get you, they will get you. I mean, I don't know how you expect
only a matter
to hide.
of time.
It's only a matter of time. They have total control of the infrastructure, and they record all data that goes in and out of the United States, traffic-wise.
Yeah.
So they have the ability to do a lot of things. What are you going to do, trick them? You're still sending your data. I mean, you can do crazy encryption things and, maybe do it that way. But they're saving all the traffic for the future. If it's something they can't decrypt now, they're saving it because you know what? In 5 years, they will be able to, and they know it.
Yeah. I mean,
they're saving information. That's
what the NSA, that's almost what the NSA is exclusively doing at this point in time. Yeah, Tor's always been kind of fascinating. I mean, I remember when it first came out, and I remember it being active, and I may have jumped on it a time or two in the early days.
But I didn't do anything real. Like I saw that the connection worked, saw it was laggy, because you had to jump, and I was like, oh, well, cool. There we go.
I think for many people, it's similar to a lot of cryptocurrency, where it's like, oh yeah, I bought some Bitcoin in an app
or something. I mean, that's where you would do something like this, somewhere where you're truly wanting anonymity, or illegal websites, with things that you shouldn't be looking at. But it's sad that to have freedom, you have to have the ability to do something like that. And that's just the way life works.
And I'll tell you what's also probably been a killer to Tor is these peer-to-peer end-to-end encryption chat apps like WhatsApp
like
and
Discord,
Signal.
like WhatsApp.
Yeah, Signal and Discord, where you can have these conversations, again, peer-to-peer encryption, which the NSA is not breaking, at least now. In the future,
not yet,
sure,
yeah.
but and who knows? But that's probably also killed some of that, because if you're trying to, I think illicit drugs are probably a good example. I'm sure there are Signal groups and chats where that stuff is already happening, or Telegram or whatever. That stuff's already happening in an encrypted way. So it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, but not with only 8,000 nodes. It's not overly shocking.
They'll be able to sit there and inundate that and just collect all traffic.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention one more thing. We're out of time, but I wanted to mention one more thing. I put a guide in here for Microsoft posted a guide to the National Public Data Breach, all those social security numbers, house addresses, and more. So I'll have this in here if you want to go and just kind of read more about it, what information was exposed, things like that. So more is just information. But we'll have a link to it in the show notes if you want to go check it out, because we did mention it. I think it was last week we talked about this.
You can find that over on our website, infectionpodcast.com. Mr. Brian, where can folks find you on the old, hopefully not on Tor, but on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me other places. If you want to find me at Boise Computer on X, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, other places. If you want to go check out my blog, biteoftech.com, and of course, our website, infectionpodcast.com. Just go there on the upper right-hand side and join us on Discord. And that's a place that we got 11 ARC servers running. If you want to go play some ARC, we got all different servers. Also got some politics that we discuss in there. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube. And of course, we upload after the fact to Rumble. We also upload all our audio forms of the podcast on the lower right-hand side. So pick whatever device or service you use that's most convenient, and you can listen to that. If you do have the ability to listen to those there, then that means we have the particular episode show notes ready to go on that, and you can click in there. There's a video and audio player built into that page, and then links to everything that we discussed throughout that episode. So it's a great way to follow along, especially if you're listening and then you want to go watch a video or something. If you want to support us, we do have a support menu option up top, or you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support.
Brian, thank you as always. Greatly appreciated. We will do it again next week.
All right, we'll see you then.
Folks, you can find me on old X at Nicholas M. Craig, and you can keep up to date with all the stuff that's got going on over there on X at Nicholas M. Craig. As Brian noted, you missed any portion of today's illustrious program, you can head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.